To preserve the inexpensive network programming provided by Professional Wrestling, Jim Crockett Promotions was purchased outright by Turner on October 11, 1988. Originally incorporated by TBS as the Universal Wrestling Corporation, Turner promised fans that WCW would be the athlete-oriented style of the NWA. The sale was completed on November 2, 1988, with a television taping of NWA World Championship Wrestling that very same date in WCW's hometown of Atlanta. 89 proved to be a turnaround year for WCW, with Ric Flair on top for most of the year as both world champion and head booker. Flair helped bring in Ricky Steamboat and Terry Funk, and his pay-per-view matches with Steamboat were financially and critically successful. Young stars such as Sid Vicious, Sting, Scott Steiner, the Road Warriors, Brian Pillman, the Great Muta and Lex Luger were given major storylines and championship opportunities. 1990, however, would be an entirely different story, as Flair would be fired from being head booker in March 1990 after WCW talent began to argue that Flair was booking things in his favor. One of these examples was Flair's refusal to drop the WCW World title to Lex Luger, as he had already promised to drop it to Sting, who himself had been injured earlier in the year. Most in the business agreed that Sting was a much better talent than Luger. Under Flair's booking, TV ratings climbed and had great pay-per-views. Flair was eventually replaced by Ole Anderson. Despite this influx of talent, WCW soon began working to gradually incorporate much of the glamour and showy gimmicks for which the WWF was better known. Virtually none of these stunts, such as the live cross-promotional appearance of RoboCop at Capital Combat in May 1990, the Chamber of Horrors gimmick, and the notorious Black Scorpion storyline succeeded. In addition, house shows were also dropping to record lows after Ole continuously pushed older wrestlers who were loyal to him during the shows. Behind the scenes, WCW was becoming more autonomous and slowly started separating itself from the historic NWA name. In January 1991, WCW officially split from the NWA and began to recognize its own WCW World Heavyweight Championship and WCW World Tag Team Championship. Both WCW and the NWA recognized Ric Flair, who was by now no longer the head booker, as their World Heavyweight Champion throughout most of the first half of '91, but WCW, particularly recently installed company president Jim Herd, who was formerly the manager of the St. Louis TV station KPLR-TV and had also once been the regional manager of Pizza Hut, turned against Flair for various reasons and fired him before the Great American Bash in July '91 after failed contract negotiations. In the process, they officially stripped him of the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. According to Flair's autobiography, they refused to return the $25,000 deposit he had put down on the physical belt, so he kept it and brought it with him when he was hired by the WWF at the request of Vince McMahon. Flair then incorporated the belt into his gimmick, dubbing himself the real world's champion. On a side note, Flair eventually received his deposit, which with interest was over $38,000. WCW later renegotiated the use of the NWA name as a co-promotional gimmick with New Japan Pro Wrestling and sued the WWF to stop showing Flair with the old NWA World title belt on its programs, claiming a trademark on the physical design of the belt. The belt was returned to WCW by Flair when Jim Herd was let go and he received his deposit back plus interest. It was brought back as the revived NWA World Heavyweight Championship. Meanwhile, the creative product of the company sank in '91 and '92 under the presidency of the inexperienced Herd. Ric Flair, who had conflicts with Herd, once stated that Herd knew nothing about wrestling, other than the fact that the station he ran had a hot show, referring to the once popular show Wrestling at the Chase, which was broadcast by KPLR-TV while Herd was manager there. According to Flair, Herd also wanted him to drop his entire Nature Boy persona, shave his head even though Flair's bleach blonde hair was one of his most recognizable trademarks, and adopt a Roman gladiator gimmick by the name of Spartacus in order to change with the times. This didn't sit too well with Flair and the creative committee. Committee member Kevin Sullivan was quoted as saying, "After we change Flair's gimmick, why don't we go to Yankee Stadium and change Babe Ruth's uniform number?" This backstage feud hit its breaking point when, during contract renegotiation, Flair refused to take a pay cut and be moved away from the main event position despite the fact that he was by far the company's biggest draw. He also refused to drop the title to Lex Luger as Herd wanted. Herd accused Flair of holding up the company. Flair tried to compromise to Herd and offered to drop the title to fellow horseman Barry Windham, saying that Windham deserved the title. Herd's other ideas included the Ding Dongs, a tag team whose sole gimmick was that they were obsessed with bells, a lumberjack named Big Josh who was accompanied to the ring by dancing bears, and the Desperados, a stable of bumbling cowboys. None of these ideas were received well by the rest of WCW, as they were seen by many as a poor attempt to mimic the WWF's more gimmick-oriented style, and Stan Hansen was so insulted by the Desperados gimmick that he left WCW outright when he was asked to be part of the group. Jim Cornette and Stan Lane would also depart from the promotion after having conflicts with Herd, thus breaking up the Midnight Express, one of WCW's top tag teams, and the Road Warriors would also leave in July 1990 because of conflicts with Herd. Herd was fired in January 92 and was succeeded by Kit Alan Frey. Frey's tenure running WCW was brief, and he would be replaced later in the year by Cowboy Bill Watts, who had formerly been the promoter for Mid-South Wrestling, later known as the Universal Wrestling Federation, and was the first head executive of WCW to have prior experience in the wrestling business since Jim Crockett left. 92 would also prove to be another bad year for WCW, as well, as Watts would make top rope moves which were commonly performed by rising stars such as Brian Pillman and the Steiner brothers illegal during wrestling matches. This was part of Watts' plans to take the WCW product back to 70s standards, with poorly lit arenas and house shows in remote rural towns. This idea was not overly embraced by the rest of WCW after clashes with management over a number of issues, as well as feeling pressure from Hank Aaron over a racially sensitive piece of correspondence, as well as accusations of anti-Semitism from Paulie Dangerously and Scotty Flamingo, both of whom are Jewish. He resigned. He was subsequently replaced by Eric Bischoff.